I don't know. That's a good question. I can look straight and it's still good. Yeah, but we can look either way. We got you. Thank you. Yeah, I heard that. Play to the TV screen, I guess. Hey everyone, my name is Sean Smith, Reverend Sean Smith, and I'm here to represent an organization today called Black Push. We are partnered with numerous organizations today to come together to talk about gun violence here in the state of Georgia, and that we need to do more. We are excited about some legislation that is going through the House now, going through the Senate now, but our call to action today is that we have to do more. It's crazy that when we realized that seatbelts in cars would save lives, we made laws that put seatbelt laws in place. When we realized that child seats would save children's lives, we put child seat laws in place. But we cannot put laws in place to protect our children. It's a shame on the state of Georgia, and it's a shame on who we are and what we're trying to represent. We are in support today of HB 971 that is in the House right now. We hope that the legislation will pass. It'll be a great bridge to where we need to be. And we have a great group of speakers. Like I said, we have people here from the NAACP, we have people here from the Urban League, we have people here from clergy, we have doctors here today, and we're just gonna hear from so many different people about this issue of gun violence. First person we're gonna call up is Reverend Shannon Jones from Concerned Black Clergy.
Good morning. Again, I'm Reverend Shannon Jones, President of Concerned Black Clergy, Metropolitan Atlanta. We're here on the eve of Sine Die because we're concerned that Georgia continues to lead this nation as one of the states with the weakest gun laws. With an opportunity to do something, Georgia decides to do nothing. We're saying that at least you can push through HB 971. The issue is not today that there are more guns in this country than there are people. The issue is not today that those guns have more legislative protective rights than U.S. citizens. The issue today is not all of the funerals that we have to attend, not all of the suicides, not all of the assault weapons that are in our streets hunting down human lives. The issue today is that Georgia is more concerned with banning books than stopping and creating common sense gun legislation. The issue is that Georgia says, let's ban books and give everybody a gun. But Georgia does not say that those people who receive a gun need to read a book about gun safety. This is our concern today. This shows that we are wayward. This shows that there is insanity run amok among far too many of our elected officials. So we're standing here today crying out and demanding common sense gun legislation. It's not too late. Tomorrow is Sine Die. We can push through HB 971, and then we're coming back next year because we shall not stop until we get some sense in Georgia.
The next person we want to call up is Dr. Michael Greenwald.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me represent our group of Georgia Clinicians for Gun Safety. A wonderful organization here that's put this event together. So appreciate the time. I was told you have a few minutes to talk, so I'm going to try to make it brief. But I started to think, what can I say in a couple of minutes? Well, I can tell you that we just got started. We started thinking about this idea last summer. We started getting people together in the fall, and we just became an organization in January, and now we're over 150 clinicians in Georgia that include, well, doctors, sure, plenty of them. We've got internists and pediatricians and ER doctors, but we have palliative care doctors and OBGYN doctors and oncologists. And we have nurses, and we have therapists, and we have pre-hospital personnel. We have students and those in training and residency and fellowship, people come from all walks of life who you wouldn't, on the surface, think, why would you care about this issue? But the truth is that we are all touched by this issue. We can't escape it anymore. It's not just those on the front lines that take care of the patient that's been acutely injured because they were shot. It's also because of the ramifications of those injuries that last for years and years and affect all of their family and the children and their classmates and the schools that they go to where they're worried about shooters and participate in active shooter drills and have heightened anxiety and depression because of these stresses that didn't used to occur when I was a kid growing up in Georgia. Just a few minutes. Well, I suppose we could share some statistics with you. That's the kind of thing that doctors do. We rely on data, so sure, I'll share some statistics. Sadly, Georgia's rate of gun violence is going up. Child dies in Georgia every other day. Somewhere in Georgia, a child dies every other day because of gun violence, not because of cancer, not because of a car accident, but because of gun violence. We've learned last year that Georgia's actually increased in the number of unintentional shootings in kids, that victims of shootings by children are most often children, that nearly 1 in every 3 unintentional shooters were 5 years old and younger. And when children unintentionally shoot another person, the victim is most often a sibling or friend. So you see, it's not just the gang violence, which is concerning and troubling and a problem worth pursuing and fixing. It is also the violence that is occurring because we have lethal weapons everywhere. They are everywhere and they're getting more and more lethal. And we are seeing the effects of those ballistics. But I'd like to really just share you, just with my final minutes, what we get to do with just a few minutes. Think about the last patient I had who was injured by gun violence. The last patient I had was a 6-month-old. 6-month-old never did anything wrong to anyone. 6-month-old baby never did anything wrong. The 6-month-old was held by his mother, who also did nothing wrong, except that she tried to stand in the way between a man who was angry and the father of her baby. And the man who was angry had a gun. He shot everyone. 2 minutes was really all we had when that baby came in, because there really wasn't much to do. Bullet had gone through the head. There was brain matter coming out of the skull. I did the usual things for a little bit. The charge nurse looked at me and shook her head, said, I'm going to be able to win this one. And 2 minutes was really all the time that I had to make a phone call to the baby's mother, because she was in another hospital. So I had to tell her this news on the phone in the 2 minutes that I had. And what can you possibly say? Sorry for your loss? Horrible words. Horrible words. We don't have a lot of time. We don't have a lot of time. We don't have a lot of time at the Capitol when we have just a minute to talk to a legislator and try to tell them, this is the issue you should be talking about. This is the issue that confronts Georgia. And we don't have a lot of time to make this right because it's getting worse. So while the legislative session comes to close and they're going to be wrapping up their business, we're not done with our business. We are just getting started. We're going to be working in the communities. We're going to be reaching out to anyone who will listen to us and to tell them that clinicians in Georgia recognize this is an epidemic and it's a crisis and we need to fix it.
I'm just going to call the next 2 people. The next 2 people we're going to have come up is Miss Heather Hallett, and then followed by her is going to be Miss Claudia Fruin.
Okay. Hi, I'm Heather Hallett, and I am the organizer for a group called the Georgia Majority for Gun Safety. And we formed late last year for 2 important purposes. And the first is to just strengthen the connections between all of the groups that you see represented here today. There are lots of amazing people doing great work in Georgia, and this is a coalition of people doing that work. The second purpose, though, is to strengthen our voice, the collective voice of the majority of Georgians who believe that common sense gun laws will help reduce gun violence and make Georgia a safer and better place to live. And I'm so thrilled to have so many people behind me today. And I know that these connections, that this gathering together that we've formed both in person today and through our coalition is vital to our success to make a difference in the laws in Georgia. You will notice that we are gun owners, we are parents, we are educators, we are clinicians, we are every walk of life. And again, it is the majority of Georgians believe that these common sense laws will make a difference. So during the legislative session, we have seen the power of our coalition with leadership from our friends of the Georgia Clinicians for Gun Safety. We have been down at the Capitol every week, holding signs, having conversations, getting meetings with legislators, talking about the very common sense little gun laws that can make a difference and reduce the violence in Georgia. We have focused on pediatric safe storage, and we're big advocates of HB 161, which is a law for to make safe storage a mandate for parents with children in their homes. And while that didn't get across, we have had some success, and it has been years of not good news at the Capitol. But HB 971, we do hope to see pass by the end of the day tomorrow, which is a tax credit law for safe storage devices, a $300 tax credit for anyone who purchases a safe or a lock, or takes a training course on how to be a responsible gun owner. And just recently, SR 203, which would be a study committee on safe storage. This is incredible news. And while this may not sound like huge progress, let me assure you that in Georgia, this is progress. And I know that it is because of the collective voices and the work that we are doing together. We did not get everything that we wanted this session. We advocated not just for the pediatric safe storage law, but a red flag protective order, protections for victims of domestic violence, universal background checks, and increased funding for the life-saving community and hospital-based intervention programs. And we have representatives of Mothers Against Gang Violence, wonderful programs that really do make a difference. Now, the current legislative session ends tomorrow, and we are still working. And I want to make sure that everybody hears that right now in the budget, there has been added $5 million to arm teachers, and $5 million for bonuses to arm teachers in the classroom. We will continue to fight against policies that make Georgians less safe, and I welcome anyone who will join us in this work. There's work to be done, but looking at this group, I know that we will continue to build our coalition and add to the numbers because, again, the majority of Georgians have common sense and want these laws to make us safer. So join us. Thank you so much.
Good morning, and thank you. My name is Claudia Fruin. So this is just a little different perspective, but like half of Georgians, my husband and I are gun owners. And gun owners come from diverse backgrounds, different professions, different genders, and all political parties. People own guns for many reasons. Some grew up hunting, some use them for their jobs. Some have served in the military, and some want them for self-defense because it just makes them feel safer. And if you don't own one now, you may someday. So we need to understand each other's concerns. One thing that may surprise you is that the majority of gun owners support safer gun laws. The NRA and the gun industry positions do not reflect how most of us feel. As a pediatrician myself, and as a mother and a grandmother, teaching and practicing safety and responsibility has been my life. And I have spent the last 11 years advocating for safe gun storage laws as a gun owner. I have always tried to keep my focus on children because I know we can all agree that no child deserves a bullet in their body. No child deserves to die because of adult negligence. But that is what's happening because of our lawmakers' inaction on even allowing a hearing on a safe storage legislation. This is hard to believe, but being a child in this country is riskier as a profession than being a police officer. Here's the numbers. In 2023, 1,700 children were killed by bullets, and 47 police officers were. That's a 36 times higher rate. In 2023, 4,529 children were injured by bullets, while 331 police officers were. That is a 14 times higher rate. No child should ever be able to access a gun and impulsively take their own life when they've had a bad day, when tomorrow is probably going to be better. Preschoolers should not be the perpetrators of 1 out of 3 unintentional shootings. Georgia's kids deserve laws that protect them from the leading cause of death. And the only way this is going to happen is if we convince lawmakers that all of us want and support safer gun laws. So the fears that the minority of gun owners have about gun registries and confiscations, they have to be calmed. They have to be calmed by the reassurance that requiring responsible gun ownership is not an infringement. We can do this, and we must do this, and we have to do this for our kids. Thank you.
Next up, in keeping with the collaboration between the different organizations, I want to call up Mr. John Moy from the Urban League, and we're going to have, followed by him, Ms. Diana Gregory from Moms Demand Action. And immediately after her, we want to have an advocate who has been through this, who has been through these situations, and who knows how it feels to actually have somebody lost in their life and been there up front to do it. And we're going to call on Aaliyah Strong. Sorry for that. So those would be the next 3 speakers you hear.
Good morning, everybody. My name is John Moy. I'm Senior Director for Policy at the Urban League of Greater Atlanta. And on behalf of our partners and clients we serve, we are very saddened today to stand here because, as you know, the epidemic of gun violence in our nation is so vast and complex, it may seem like an impossible issue to solve, but we know it's not impossible. Where there's a will, there's a way. While no one has a magic wand to end gun violence, we've seen proven results from steps taken to reduce gun violence in jurisdictions around the country. And we are determined to see Georgia legislators begin to adopt some of the same proven measures to save lives and to stop the horror of gun deaths and injuries in our state. That's why the Urban League of Greater Atlanta is proud to be among the civic and community organizations here today in support of HB 971, which calls for tax credits for safe storage devices and gun safety training courses. This is a step in the right direction, and we ask that the Senate Rules Committee consider this bill and move it to the floor of the Senate. Action on this bill will signal to everyone who visits, lives, works, and plays in Georgia that our legislators are serious about promoting responsible gun ownership. Let's all do what we can to let our representatives and political leadership in the state know that we are voting, that the voting public want to see the passage of HB 971. This bill has passed the House. Now let's get it passed in the Senate. I thank you all very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Diana Gregory. I am a current Moms Demand Action volunteer here in Georgia. I'm here representing myself and as a mother of 4 children today. I joined the gun violence prevention movement back in February 2018 after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school shooting in Florida. Horrific shooting. Moms Demand Action is a movement of over 10 million mayors, teachers, survivors, gun owners, everyday Americans, and our purpose is to work together to decrease gun violence and increase public safety across our nation. I'm not going to go into the statistics because I think a lot of them have been covered already, but I just want to emphasize that Georgia has the weakest gun laws in the country, number 46 for gun law strength. Georgia, several years ago, passed its last foundation by passing permitless carry with no background checks, no training, and no permits needed. No concealed permits needed either. There is no shoot first law that allows a person to kill another in a public area, even when they can safely walk away from danger. There is no secure storage or child access prevention laws, and there are no laws against assault weapons, ghost guns, high-capacity magazines. Guns are allowed in the Capitol, in bars, and demonstrations, in schools. Very dangerous areas for some of those, especially when alcohol is added to the mix. And there is not an extreme risk protection order in place, and some people call this red flag law if you're not familiar with it. I just came from downtown to support the family of Ahmaud Arbery, whose killers are petitioning to appeal their hate crime conviction. We know that we also need to fight to disarm hate. Gun violence is tragically linked to each of these in unique ways. And today you're hearing from several amazing community partners in the gun violence organizations that are on the ground and how they are fighting to end gun violence here in Georgia. They're here to talk to you about the realities of our country's gun violence crisis, how it impacts the communities here in Georgia, and what we can do to make our communities safe. I am passing my remaining minutes to Ms. Aaliyah Strong from A Time to Thrive Beyond Grief and the wonderful work that she's doing in an area of gun violence that helps others on where to turn to after a tragedy takes place. I'm going to pass my remaining minutes to Aaliyah.
My name is Aaliyah Strong, and I stand before you today as the founder of Time to Thrive Beyond Grief. We are an Atlanta area nonprofit that provides financial, emotional, and legal support to individuals who have lost a loved one to gun violence. You see, my journey has been shaped by profound loss after I witnessed my fiance's murder in February of 2022. In fact, I passed that very place almost 3 times a week just to run day-to-day errands. In my darkest moments, I wondered if my pain would serve a purpose, if the echoes of my suffering could reverberate through the halls of power and ignite genuine change. Yet, despite our pleas of those directly impacted, our elected officials remain stuck in political inertia, their priorities misplaced, and they are constantly falling short of the mark. We speak of gun safety, gun storage, storing firearms responsibly, but what about the aftermath? What about the unrelenting cycle of violence that festers in the wounds of survivors? The trauma that festers when resources are scarce and support is fleeting. Today, I implore you to heed my words, to recognize the resilience of survivors like myself who navigate a terrain marred by loss and despair. It is time to elevate survivors' voices, to place them at the forefront of our collective efforts. For if you seek understanding, if you want to know the truth behind the statistics, ask a survivor. We will tell you the real, raw truths about the reality of our shared struggles. Let us not falter in our resolve. Let us not shy away from the uncomfortable truths of life after losing someone to gun violence. Together, let us forge a path forward, guided by empathy, fueled by compassion, and anchored in the unwavering belief that from tragedy, we can make genuine change. Today I am 26 years old, and during this time I'm supposed to be taking trips, going out, working, career planning, but instead I'm spending my mid-20s advocating for policy changes, going to the White House, doing press conferences like this, and paving the way for our future leaders to do the same work that I'm doing, so that hopefully no one else like me has to experience something like this. Thank you.
As we come to a close to the press conference, I'm going to call up 3 more people. I'm going to call up somebody from Mothers Against Gang Violence. We're going to have PK from Mothers Against Gang Violence. Followed by that, we'll have Apostle Fritz Muster from Tabernacle International. And then we'll have Reverend McDonald to close us out.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Takesia Shields, Miss TK, the founder of Mothers Against Gang Violence. And Mothers Against Gang Violence work with families who have been impacted by gun and gang violence. But what I also do is I teach the families how to advocate for themselves. We have collaborated with Georgia Majority for Gun Safety and Moms Demand Action so that our community can learn the laws. In order for you to advocate and go and speak on your behalf, you have to understand what impacts your community. And so, again, with the trainees of the gun safety lockboxes and the bills that are being passed through our legislators, we actually come together as a diverse community to make sure that we all understand, whether it's low income, whether it's middle class, whether it's poor individuals, as we may say. We make sure that all of our communities are educated, all of our communities have voices, and all of our communities know that we stand together to make sure that nobody is impacted by the trauma that has been plaguing our community. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Apostle Fritz Musser from Tabernacle International Church, and I just want to say it's a joy to be a part of this group and the efforts that everybody is making for not just HB 971, but for the future when it comes to gun laws. The Bible says that wisdom is the principal thing, and therefore we should get wisdom. One of the things I've noticed in our political arena is that we're more interested in fighting than we are in making good laws that help people. We're more interested in being divided than we are in being united for a cause and a purpose. The Bible tells us to get wisdom. I have to spend a lot of my time as a pastor meeting with security people that have to put all kinds of things in measure to prevent someone walking into our building with a weapon and murdering, destroying the lives of families and people in a congregation where people are worshiping together, where people should have a place of refuge, a place of joy. And so what I'm saying here today is that we should just come together and wise up. Let's get wisdom. As a father of adult children, I carry the responsibility of my children, and I'm proud of who they are today. But I want you to know that God holds me responsible for what I speak into my children. And today, I firmly believe, and if you don't know God, it doesn't matter. You don't have to know God for God to exist. He exists whether you know him or not. We are all going to have to answer to God for things that we don't do. And when we stand in the right place and make the right decisions that are not politically driven, they're more spiritually driven, and they're more wisdom driven than anything. Let's just wise up. Let's get wise. Let's come together as people in a community, and let's do something that we know is going to make sense, common sense, in what's happening in our communities right now. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much. I know we're at the end of the press conference, but we've been talking a lot about families and brief, and Reverend Sean, if I can, as a pastoral prerogative, I want Ms. Betty to say something, and then we've been talking a lot about legislators, and we have one here who has been fighting our battle, who knows the legislation, and it's not a very popular position under the Gold Dome to fight for what Sarah Draper has been fighting for. So Sarah, if you come, Ms. Betty, if you come real quick. Sarah Draper, who represents East Atlanta, if you would come. And let me commend Black Push. That's what I was going to say until I was just given this responsibility as well. Thank you, Sean, for bringing us together. These various groups. A lot of times we feel very isolated, each group, that we're doing our own thing. When I walked downstairs and saw all of these tables and these groups networking, talking with one another, it gave me hope. We've been fighting this fight for over 50 years. Not a new fight. Our country has more guns than people, which has already been stated. Not a new fight. But the race is not to the strong, not the swift, but to those of us who hold out until the end. We're not here trying to run sprint. We're here for the marathon. Black Push, keep on doing what you're doing. Keep on connecting us. Keep on bringing us together. Ms. Betty, if you will come, Sarah, State Representative, East Atlanta, if you will come and say a word, and then we'll, I think, be ready to open it up for questions. Ms. Betty.
Thank you, Pastor. Good morning to everyone. And I'd like to say thank you to the media, to Pastor Sean Smith with Black Push, the great pastor of this church, and the concerned Black clergy president, Pastor Shannon. I say thank you. My name is Betty Maddox Battle, and I am the founder of a 501c3 homicide support group. My son was murdered in 1993, 25 years old, shot 4 times by a 16-year-old in the city of Atlanta. We stand together in solidarity today on what is going on, not only here in the city of Atlanta, but all over this country. Almost 5,000 people have died in the U.S. as a result of gun violence this year. 316 are shot every single day, according to ABC News. The highest gun ownership, mass murder, related homicide, now suicide has to be added. It's unacceptable. As a mother, and I stand before you today and say there's no cry like a mother's cry. We're crying for justice. We need the legislators, we need the politicians in Congress to do their job. We will not settle for anything else. The harsh reality is we're plagued with a cancer that has metastasized the community that's called gun violence. As a mother, I stand here before you, whether stoic in front of a television camera or an emotional wreck at their funeral. How many other children or loved ones has to die before we say enough is enough? I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the support that we have. And do not take it for granted. But last but certainly not least, let me leave you with this. It doesn't hurt home until it hits home. Let me say that again for the people in the back. It doesn't hurt home until it hits home. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Reverend Mack. My name is Syra Draper, and I am the state representative for House District 90, right here, Atlanta-DeKalb County. I just wanted to acknowledge that I'm not the only legislator here today. I'm here with my dear friends and colleagues, Representative Derek Jackson, who is right behind me, and Representative Becky Evans as well. I want you to all know that we see you, we hear you, we are fighting for you, And there are many of us in the Georgia legislature who are fighting for you. And the fact that we are having this here in House District 90 means a lot to me, because there is not a family in this district, this is a diverse district, but there is not a family in this district that is not concerned about lax gun laws. And it affects people in this district very directly, whether it's gunshots that they hear, whether it's stray bullets that come into a child's window, whether it's because somebody is the victim of gun violence or knows someone else who has been impacted by gun violence, or because they are a parent who sends their child to school where the threat of a school shooting is constant. But the truth is, these issues are not unique to District 90, because they impact every family in Georgia. And the majority of Georgians have these fears and have these current concerns. So if we have a legislature where the majority does not reflect those concerns and fight for those concerns, then we need to vote those people out who do not share these values. We need a majority in the legislature that represents the people's values, full stop. Now, this issue of gun violence is deeply personal to me. I am the mother of 3 small children. There is not a day that I see them out the door going to school that I don't wonder what if. My daughter, on her first day of pre-K, so her very first day in the school system in Georgia, her school went on lockdown because there was a man with a rifle outside her school. Her very first day of school. Fast forward a year and a half later, she comes home sobbing. And I ask her what's wrong, and she says she's worried they're gonna have to go under the tables. What are you talking about, honey? She was worried about the mandatory active shooter drills that they had to do at school. So it really drove home the point to me that even if you are not physically harmed by gun violence, there is an emotional toll that is being taken out on our children. Our children. One last point I would like to make. Tomorrow is sine die. It is the last day of the legislative session for 2024. And you heard that yesterday, in darkness, a line item was put into the budget that will fund teachers to have arms in the classroom, a policy that is deeply unpopular with Georgians. It is a perversion of democracy for that to go forward. They rejected the regular bill process. When they didn't get support for this inane idea, they didn't go through the bill process. They didn't go to the committee process because they wanted to evade scrutiny. They wanted to evade the press. They wanted to evade us. And so we will do everything we can to block this measure. We have until midnight tomorrow to block this measure. But let me tell you what, we will not stop after midnight tomorrow because there is so much work to be done. So thank you to this coalition who makes all of us stronger. We are here working with you. Let's get it done. Thank you.
With that being said, we're going to get ready to close out. All right? Miss Becky, I'm sorry. We're going to have Miss Becky come up and say something real quick, and then we're going to close out.
Great. Thank you so much. I want to say I am so deeply grateful to everyone in this coalition, this Georgia majority. This fall, when Heather came to me and we were talking about what we need to do, what can we do to get this message out across Georgia? Like, we have to broaden this coalition, and the clinicians were already getting together. They had already gotten together. We had the Mayor Gertz from Atlanta who had already written the letter together. We had Lissy from the Temple that was already getting an interfaith alliance together. And so it was so important that we communicate that it is across Georgia that the Georgians are the majority. We get emails from the Georgia gun owners. I counted them up. 1,500 the day after we had the hearing for this pediatric safe gun storage, there were 1,500 emails, 700 one day, 800 the next. And then a few more trickled in. 2,000 emails from Georgia gun owners mad at us for having this, hearing, calling out the Republicans that allowed this hearing to happen. And we know that we represent the majority. We represent the millions of Georgians. I absolutely stand with my colleagues. We will fight against this $5 million that was put into the budget under darkness. We will eliminate that. We will do our best with God's help to eliminate that from the budget. And this work is not done. We've got to take this majority across the state. We've got to reach out to our universities, to our mayors, to our hospitals across the state and get them contacting their legislators so we can change the gun laws here in Georgia. Thank you.
So now with that being said, we want to just reiterate that this is a coalition of not only just one organization, there's multiple organizations here. I would love for the media, the press that is here, to talk to the different organizations that are here and represented here today. But we not only have different organizations here, we have people from the clergy community here today, we have people from the health community here today, we have people from the advocacy communities here today. Even we have family members here today, even Mr. Jimmy Hill is here today. Representing Jimmy Hill today. So we know that this is a collective effort. And again, we want to leave you with this. If we could pass laws to keep our children safe in cars, if we could pass laws to keep our children safe on buses, we could pass laws to keep our children safe here at our homes and on the streets, we could do better. And all we're calling for today is we stand to the state of Georgia, we must do better. And we owe it to our children to do better. Because even as I look out at this crowd, I see this young man, and his future is bright, and we should not deter his future because of the fact that we don't want to stand up against gun violence. With that being said, the floor is open for questions. We did good. Amen. Amen.
Thank you all. Continue network talking to each other. Oh, she's gonna do a picture. I showed you. Use that social media.
Y'all ready? Come on. Hey, y'all. Y'all, everybody. Yo.
Hey, y'all.
Let's go photo.
We're gonna do one big group picture. Ready, Deja?